Well, this week we have what is known here in the shop as the cursed Dyna. Now, I don't believe this bike came cursed. I believe somebody kind of intentionally maybe tried to sabotage it. So let's get this bike back on the road for a good customer and subscriber of ours from West Virginia. So welcome back to Butler Customs Motorcycle Shop. Well, before we get to digging in on the bike and getting it back on the road for a customer, let's walk around it, kind of put our peepers on it and gander and see what's going on. I apologize about the noise. We have a winter front, cold front moving in. Trees are down, branches are down. It's been windy. Beautiful, short weather yesterday, freezing cold today. That's just Tennessee, but spring is coming very soon, and I want to get this back on the road and back to West Virginia so they can enjoy this. We're going to uncurse this bike, but let's walk around and see what's going on with it. So here is the beautiful 06 Dyna. And this is the first year of the hydraulic cam chain tensioners. It should be in there. So of course we're going to give it a full service, but one of the main reasons that it's up here, you're not going to believe this. There's a hole in this tank right about there. And the customers, the subscribers that brought it up said, it looks like somebody drilled a hole in the bottom of the tank. And I thought, surely not. Well, sure enough, they did. Let me show you. Now I've got a light up here underneath this tank, and sure enough, that is a perfect hole. Someone had to have drilled that, and they would have had to have taken the horn off to even get a drill up in there. So perfect. I'm not sure why would anybody do that? Now I do see some residue right here. It almost looks like maybe rust spots, and I hope that it's on the outside and not actually coming through the tank, but it does look like there's some residue of gas right there. But what they had on it is some kind of like a putty maybe. I'm not sure, but it didn't hold it, and you can tell it's been leaking, running back here, and of course down, and it's all down here as well. But that is indeed a hole. Has some nice little, added accessories to it. It's got that nice little axle cover. It's got these nice little chrome covers over the head bolts. Has a good tire on it. It's not been chopped up or nothing. All factory. It has attachments for quick detach sissy bar. It's got some nice shocks on it. Missing the battery cover. I'll have to contact them, see if they want me to purchase someone. It's got aftermarket exhaust, Vance & Hines True Duals with the little soup at the end, which these are nice. They sound really good, but boy, is it a pain to check your oil. So you never want to do this with the bike hot. There's just no way you won't burn yourself. Sequential port injection, Dyna Y-Glide. Oh yeah. It's got some nice little updated footrest and brake pedal, and I believe that the grips are the same as well. Yeah, it is an 06 in pretty good shape. Now I do see the dreaded leak there on the fork, so we will need to do fork seals. The rear tire looks good. The front tire looks good. It's got the nice spoke on it, the 21. I did look at the brake pads. They look good. The rotors look good. Of course, we'll check the fluids, but it is cursed. So mechanically, I don't know if somebody tried to sabotage this or what. The check engine light is on. The battery does power up, although it really doesn't have any cranking amps in it anymore, so we will have to replace this, but we can jump it off to crank to see if we got spark. But it does have a check engine light on it. So this comes on normally, it goes off after the fuel pump stops pumping, and then if you got any check engine warning lights, it'll come back on, and that's indeed what's happening. So I went to look at what the code was, and you know, you hold this in, and then you turn it on, you make sure it's on run, and I noticed the button felt funny, and there's no button. There's no button in it. So it just, somebody took that off intentionally. So we can't check the codes until we pull the cover off and then try to see if the button's back in there somewhere hiding out. I see the threading of it, but it didn't feel like there was a button on it. So that is really weird. Usually they'll break, but you know, the button, it just won't push in and out anymore. There won't be just no button there. And also notice it does have the fuel level indicator, but they've got a chrome cover on this. So I don't know if they want to go back. It'd be nice, since it's got it, to have, you know, a fuel gauge, because that's what it's wired for. So I think we're going to be digging in some electricals here. I think that's probably why it's a cursed bike. Somebody might have monkeyed with some electrical. So what I want to do, go ahead and pull this seat off, and then we can access this battery a little bit better, get a charger on it, and see what the plugs look like. That'll tell us an indicator if it's electrical, kind of low spark, maybe on one cylinder, not sure. So let me set you up. We'll get this seat off and get the battery tender on here and just get into it. Overall though, the bike's in pretty good condition. Sorry about the lighting. I've got one light that I like, this white light. That's what I use. This one stopped doing white. It'll do that color. It'll do a blue color, like a cold color they call it. It will not do white anymore. You go to the white, it just turns off. It's kind of weird. So I guess I got to replace the bulb in that. So if the color looks weird, that's why. One's yellow and one's white. All right, should be a 3/16 here on this seat bolt, and it is. Oh, that don't feel right. Okay, something's not right on this seat bolt. Oh yeah, the bottom is off and it feels weird. Now, this bike has no tags on it, so I'm guessing they might have just bought it, and that's how they got it in this condition. Looks like an aftermarket seat bolt, and it's missing the pin that goes over it that keeps this on here. Let me take this seat off and I'll show you. Okay, so on these, there's a clip that should clip into here, but maybe it had one at one time and it's missing, because it's got the little notch that matches here, and this goes up under here. You'll push it in, you'll find the notch, and then there's a clip that's supposed to clip in there that holds this up so that when you take the bolt out, that doesn't drop out. But I don't see a groove. Maybe it had one in it at one time. Instead of buying a whole new thing, what we can do is just take a cutoff wheel, make our own groove, and put our own clip in there, so that when we put this up here, we can clip our own clip in there, and then this stays right here. You don't want this sticking out past the bottom, because if this fender ever bottoms out, the bottom of this bolt, the end of this bolt will rub on your wheel, cut a slit in your wheel. So you always want this to go just before or flush with the bottom of this. You don't want this sticking out. And by the looks of it, I think this is going to stick out. Yeah, it's going to stick out a whole lot. Yeah, and there's about the width of your fender, maybe even a little smaller, so it's probably going down more than that. But see how much that's sticking out? So if this fender bottoms out, that right there is cutting right in the middle of your tire. Not good. So we'll fix that. But now we have access to the battery here. So the wiring themselves don't look like they've been monkeyed with much. Got some old cobwebs in there. Those all look really stock and factory. There's no lights on here. There's no radio. There's not even a battery tender on here. So there's nothing, I don't think, added to this bike. It all looks good in stock wiring. But let me get some jumpers on here. And while that's doing a little bit of a charge, let's go over and look at our spark plugs. That'll really tell us a lot. I don't think we have to worry about turning it over by hand and cranking it or anything like that. I think it's going to be fine. Just looks like maybe somebody, I don't know, sabotaged it. Well, the battery is charging, so that's good, but I don't know about the cold cranking amps. And that's really the thing, when the battery sets, it'll lose that. It'll be able to charge, and it'll even hold a charge. But when you go to crank on it, it drops so low, it just won't start to bite. Let's pull the front plug here and see what we got. Iridiums. All right, that's our color there. Looks good and brown. I would not recommend using these iridiums on a Harley because they've got that real fine tip and it's hard to adjust these for any kind of gap. Because if you're not careful, you'll break that tip off. I'm probably just going to throw some Champions in here. I like those. I think they work well with the Harleys, just copper core. That should be good. But the color looks good. It's got a nice kind of brown hue to it. Not a lot of carbon buildup. So that looks okay. Let's try our rear. Okay, and our rear looks pretty bad. It's got a lot of soot on it. A lot of carbon, and it's not ran, so I don't know if that's from gas, oil, or just carbon. But in comparison to the front, you can see the difference there in the color on the top and even on the sides. So a big difference in the front cylinder and the rear cylinder and how they've been running. So that could be an indicator. Let's let this battery charge a little bit. Let me grab a spark tester and see if we got enough juice just to crank to check for spark. Now I did check the oil level and the transmission oil level, and they look good. The fluids look good. Now there's no way to really check the primary. They took away the inspection cover down here. They do have the derby cover you can take off and kind of look down in there. But there's, I hate that they did that because there's no way to check the chain. Now, yeah, it's got an automatic tensioner in it, but there's really no way to look at the tensioner. Is the tensioner pad good? I don't know. You can't inspect it anymore. So we'll probably be pulling this outer primary off so we can see the clutch pack, we can see the compensator, we can look at the chain, we can look at the tensioner, all that good stuff, and then putting this back on with a new gasket. And of course, new fluids. I don't even know if it shifts or not. Don't know. All right, I got you down here on the front cylinder. I'll turn this light off. I'll turn this other light off. There. Now we should see it spark. Now I don't know how well it'll spark because of the battery. Let's see. I do hear the fuel pump. That's good. Okay, so no spark and then a spark at the end. Good, it's cranking good. So that battery, we might be able to save on that battery. There was a spark at the end, and that is ignition troubles or timing troubles. Just for funsies, let me put the plug back in and put this on the plug. That's actually the way you're supposed to do them. But I figured with the plugs out, the motor would crank easier and it wouldn't be so hard on the battery. Now let's see if that makes a difference. I doubt it. Okay, so we do have spark now. So that's a good thing. It wasn't sparking before. I guess this wasn't grounded out good and it wasn't creating the spark. So I'm glad I checked that before we dug into any kind of ignitions, which we might still have ignition trouble. I'm curious what if the back does the same because that's the one that looked pretty bad. So I'll take this plug out to kind of save on our battery when we crank. I'll put the rear plug in. It is a little low. It looks a little weak. It doesn't look like it's firing quick, but it could be the battery issue as well. All right, so to get this top cover off, 3/16 here, here, and here. The speedometer will come out with it. We'll have to disconnect it or just kind of peek under there and see where this trip button went to. Now, when you're doing this, I would recommend taking the battery off, but we got the battery charging. If you're careful, you'll be all right. And we'll go ahead and take the tank off as well, since we know we got to get that repaired. Now we should be able to raise this up. Okay, there's part of our button. Looks like it just came apart on us. Yeah, there's the other part here. I know you might not be able to see it. There you go. It just disintegrated on us. What I don't see is the little push rod. There's no push rod in it. You know what that means? That means this broke, and instead of replacing it, which is a $10 part, they just put it through there and screwed the end cap on. So, nah, forget it. Now, when I say they, I'm not talking about the people that own the bike now, probably whoever had it before them and sold it, which is quite sad. I'm going to take this stripping off here, get it out of our way, get a pen and pad ready for codes, because I know it's got some. Okay, and I'm going to try to hold these two wires together, turn the ignition on, and I should be in diag. Yeah. Now I'll separate them. I'll push them together again. Okay, now I'm into all my units. I'll hold them together. It should go into that. Okay, hold them together again. Oh, dadgummit, I cleared it. Did you see what it was? I cleared it by mistake. Okay, now I gotta hold them together. Get back out. Okay, go to here, hold these together, nothing there, and the speedometer, nothing there, and my T, no, hold it there. Okay, so I had a code there, but I don't know what it is because I accidentally cleared it off. But I'll go back and look at the video footage, and then I'll know. It's hard to do that with just holding the wires together and whatnot. So it just had one code on it. Hope it showed up in the video, because if not, I don't know what it was. Now I will take the ignition off, and the ignition just has two clips on each side, and that slides off. And that's why I was telling you to disconnect your battery, because this is hot. You got a constant hot. It runs up through here. Now I do see blue taping, which tells me somebody has been in here. This says number 2. I don't know why that says number 2. But this is all of your lights, your oil pressure lights, your turn signal lights, your neutral light right here. Then you have your speedometer up here that I will carefully take off. It's kind of like the ignition as well. It's got a couple of clips on each side. All that's off, and then this can move off and be put to the side. And there went a washer. Lay this somewhere safe. Now we've got our bolts. We can run back in our tank so we don't lose them. And then we have our fuel pump, and this is taped as well. I don't know why, because nothing under here connects to anything else except what they go into. This says number 1. So I'll be taking all this mess off. I hate to see blue painter's tape on electrical stuff. That usually scares me. I'm like, oh no. vent tube here. We can move her to the side. And then we have the connector to this, but there's nothing up here unless it's, is it like digital? Does it glow up? It just looks like a chrome piece. Or maybe it's glass and it lights up. So there's just a connector under this tank. Here, we'll disconnect just like that. It's a 3-prong. I don't know if you can see that in the camera or not, but then all that is disconnected. You know what? That does look like it's glass, kind of. I wonder if that lights up. I wonder if it's aftermarket. Because why would you take your fuel gauge away? Don't make no sense. So I bet that lights up. But I didn't see it light up when I had the ignition on. But we'll look at that. Now there shouldn't be any gas in the tank because it's got a hole in it. So we got a quick disconnect here. That's off. We got our crossover line we need to take off, and a bolt up here and a bolt back there, and the whole tank's ready to come off. Then we can inspect that hole a little bit better. Now I don't know about you, but I like the style of these Dyna tanks. They're not too small of a sporty, and they're not big like a touring. I don't know, maybe they're the same size as touring. Maybe it's just my eyeballs. You tell me, are they the same tank as a touring tank? Fuel is leaking out of my quick disconnect, so that gasket is bad in there, which happens. And this crossover has been taken off before. It does not have the factory clamps on it. This hose off. We'll be replacing this hose anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. 1/2 inch back here on the back. It's a long bolt. And we got the same up here. And then that should be it. I gotta get this tank off quick because it's leaking gas out of that quick disconnect. That ain't good. That was not tight at all. So we're sure. There's our bolt. Put these back. The bolts should be the same lengths, I believe, if I remember correctly. All right, now our tank's ready to come up and out. And set it somewhere where it won't leak on us. So of course, here's the bottom of the tank. There's that hole, and it is indeed a hole that's been drilled. Why would they do that? Why? What were they going to put on it, or did they do it to sabotage it? I don't know. And the more I'm looking at this down here, this was leaking, dripping the whole time once I did that quick disconnect. So these O-rings are bad. It looks like this seal up in here might be bad as well. I don't think that this leaking was coming all up around here. It looks like this might be leaking too. We need to inspect inside this tank. If this is all rusted out and this rust is starting to come through, see that right there? That worries me. That's looks like a rust that is starting to come through. This tank could be bad. And it would probably be cheaper getting a good used tank with matching color, I think that's a factory color, than replacing the fuel pump. The quick disconnect is all one assembly. I like to replace it all when it's leaking bad like that, not just do gasket stuff. But is all that worth it when you can just buy a good used tank that's in good condition, get it in here, slap it on? Well, I forgot to record the audio for this, so how about while I take all the guts out of this tank, just listen to some good free YouTube music. Okay, so I did depin this, got it out of this, went over to the battery charger, nothing. Although it looks really nice, I wonder if it lights up enough to even see with a glare, because it's reflective. You can see yourself in it. Doesn't work. So we'll have to add that to the list. So let's get the quick disconnect off, see what it looks like, check the hoses. Sometimes those hoses will get cracks in them and you won't get good fuel pressure, and that will make your bike run terrible. Could be an issue as well. So we'll need to check those. What I want to do is add everything up with repairing that tank and then see how it compares with a good used tank that we might not have to do anything to, but maybe respray it or put it on. Okay, so I got the quick connect off, and all you do is just put a socket or a croissant wrench on it and just turn it. With this disconnected, it will just turn and spin out at the bottom of your tank. You cannot do that with this connected, because what you'll do is you'll twist and you'll actually break this line. Now we want to make sure there is no air leaks, cracks in this line and in the line that goes to the pump as well. So on this, the way I'm testing this, and it might not be the right way, I'm not going to put my mouth on here and blow, because this isn't sealed good. It was leaking on us, remember? So with this off, no air or fuel is supposed to go through, but I'm getting fuel through. So what I want to do is cap off at the palm of my hand, pull this sleeve back, cap off best I can at the palm of my hand and push hard, and then I want to suck and put my tongue over the top and see if it holds pressure. If it doesn't, I might have a split in this line. Now the O-ring down here looks good, but it actually looks to be the wrong size O-ring, and I'm not even sure if it's a gas O-ring, and it's real thin. Usually they're thicker and they'll set in this groove a lot tighter, so I think this is the wrong O-ring for this. I might be mistaken, but it just seems to me it doesn't fit right. And if you look, there is a lot of slack in this O-ring. And so when you go to screw it in, if it's not setting just perfect, it'll pinch to the side and you'll get a leak. All right, so I am getting good pressure. And if I blow, that's good. It's still pliable, bendable. Where you'll get your cracks is in these little bendy hoses. But if you're careful putting them in and reach your hand in here and grab the end and let this screw back in, they should be good. And the pump itself can get cracks in this as well. This has a quick disconnect on it as well. Now they make a little tool you can put in there to separate them, but if you'll just take you a small flathead and put in there, pull back on this, keep pressure on this, and put a little screwdriver and lift one side up, it'll pop out. Keep pressure pulling back and put a little screwdriver on the other side, and then this will pop out. Okay, these lines are good. And let's see, we got to line these tabs back up just right. There we go. I know that my pump was working. I could hear it running, so it doesn't look bad. My filter looks nice and clean. It looks like maybe it was replaced. I doubt this to be an OEM filter and pump because it looks so new. But the bike only had, I don't know if you saw that or not, the bike only had 3,000 and something miles on it. Basically a brand new bike. So this could be original. Now on your quick disconnect, you've got 2 O-rings inside here, and those are what usually leaks. If you disconnect your fuel line and then you ram it back up in there and it starts leaking, it's usually these 2 O-rings. Now they do make a little tool that you can go in there and get both O-rings out and put new O-rings in. So if this was still on the bike and you were doing some type of service and you put your quick disconnect back on and it started leaking and you didn't want to take your tank off, that might be a good option to get that tool. But we've already got this out. And instead of guessing on the condition of this, let's just get a new one. It will come with a new right O-ring, a new O-ring up here, new line here, new O-rings inside here, so that we know everything's right. I like to do that instead of replacing those O-rings, because that kit's good in an emergency, but sometimes when you put them back in, they don't seat right or they get twisted, and they're just a pain to deal with. So I just like to replace the whole thing. I got our multimeter out, and I got these little prongs that are like little pins. They do good about getting in small places. All right, we're zeroed out there, so we're good to go. All right, now this connector has 2 pins here that are the orange and black, and then you got the yellow and black that go to the actual level. So I want to put each pin in there, and it doesn't matter which goes where. Now when I get this all the way down, and our resistance with this not moving, and it's crazy all over the place. Now that's the fuel all the way down, no fuel at all. Now as we raise it up, our resistance is getting less and less. Until we are all the way up at 38. So we started around 300, went up to 38, and then we'll go back down. We should start rising in our resistance. Let it settle. We're at, I saw a 290, I see a 250. It's going to move around just because it's very sensitive. Okay, so I think we're good there. We had a resistance, we went up, it went down, we went down, it went up. So I think that is okay. So our float works, just our gauge didn't work, and we verified our gauge didn't work. We took it off the actual tank, put it straight to power, and it never lit up, never did a thing. So what we're going to need, if we're going to keep the tank, is we need to repair the hole in it. We need to get a new fuel gauge, and we need to get a new outlet. So let me kind of estimate and add up all that's going to be. I'll give you the price, and then we'll see what the price is going to be for just a good used tank, if I can find one in that matching color. Well, we got updates. We will not be buying a new/used tank. Goodness gracious. What did they line them with? Like gold? Good luck finding one without 15 dents in it. But when you do find one, you might as well just buy another bike. When did gas tanks get so expensive? Good grief. Okay, so we're repairing the one we got. So let's start fixing holes and putting things together. Okay, so now we're ready to fix this drilled hole in this tank. I just took a flap disc off the wheel, scuffed it down nice and smooth. I got rid of all that kind of putty that was on there. I'm trying to kind of save on the paint so that when it's on the bike you won't even see this. So I've got my flux ready, I've got my solder ready. I don't have a solder iron to use on this. I'm just going to use a torch, and what I want to do is heat the metal up. I'll probably lose a little bit more paint than this, and then I want to take my solder. This is a steel tank, not aluminum. If it was aluminum, I would use aluma weld rods or get it TIG welded. Now you could spot weld this with a welder. I've done that before. But with a hole this small, this is just kind of a cleaner feel, and this will feel just as good as a weld. I did flush the tank out with water. I put the big propane blower, set it in front of it, got all of the water out of it, and now we're just ready to heat this up. Get this metal nice and hot. I'm just going to kind of start around the outside. You know what? I forgot to add my flux. That's important. You want to do that. So I'll just take my pocket knife, because without the flux, this will not, well, that adheres pretty good. Alright. But I will put my flux on there. That'll help us get a, but that did take, so that's good. Now that I've got it all the way around, I can start filling the hole up. And I want to make this pretty high. I want to build it up all the way around really good, because I want a really good seal. That way when we grind it down, we can check, and then if we need to resolder, we can resolder. Let that puddle up there. That looks pretty good to me. Now I won't spray this with anything. I want to let it kind of cool off naturally. Let it harden up. Let it seal good. I think we were able to kind of save on our paint there a little too. Now we torched this back here, but it's underneath the tank. Now we won't know if this sealed good, filled the hole in, until we sand all this excess down, get back down to the metal, and then we should be able to see if that hole is sealed in. We might have to put another layer over top just for insurance purposes. But now that that's kind of cooled off to the touch, all right, doing that by hand is going to take forever. So I got the grinder out with the flap disc on it. It's an 80 grit. So what I'm going to do is start it up, turn it off, and then sand down on it. That way I got a little more control over it. All right, there we go. As you can see, it's nice and smooth and filled in. Now, as this paint was coming off, I noticed another little hole there. I don't think it goes all the way through, but we'll have to see once we get some gas in it. Now, you could fill it back with water and just watch and see how it's gonna go, but I like using gas because that way you'll know it'll seep in and you'll know if it's going to leak or not. But it feels nice and smooth. I think that's going to be a good fix for us. I will prime this just so it doesn't flash rust on us. But as far as repainting the tank and stuff, I'll leave that up to the customer if they want to do that. Again, it's on the underside of the bike. The inside looked good. I don't see any issues with it. So I think that's going to hold for us. I did run to the Harley store and I did get a new gauge here. And I can tell you that O-ring, I was right, is quite different. Thicker, fits in here tighter. So this was indeed the wrong O-ring. That is a little different. This O-ring sets on top. This one sets down in here. But this is the one that goes to it. It is made different. I wonder if that's the curse issue. Could it be? Very well could be. So all I'm going to do is blow this tank out, make sure, double check, triple check that it is indeed dry on the inside. I'm pretty sure it is. Then we can start assembling everything back together. This hose is nice and pliable and good. I'm just going to reuse that again. I don't see any issue with it. Looks like it's sealed up good in there. Looks like it's sealed up good. I wonder if we've got some more pinholes. I don't know. The rest of the tank looks great. Looks really good. Now it does look like inside here it's kind of clogged up. So I will take this off, put some compressed air in here, get that unclogged, and do the same for the other side as well, just to make sure we got good fuel flow going through. But I think we're ready to go back and put our guts back in, clean up the tank, and hopefully throw it on and see if it doesn't leak anymore. Okay, well, I'm glad I checked it. That is completely clogged up. This side was good. Going this side is completely clogged up. Air hose would not blow through it. So I got a coat hanger. Alright, I think I might have broken it out now. I'll try to spray some carb cleaner through the hole too. Alright, well that was the ticket. The carb cleaner, the clothesline hanger down here, and then the other side, carb cleaner, air, blew it all out, and it was just filled with trash. And it looks pretty clean down inside there, best I can get it. I don't really think there's a need for a red coat yet. The filter looked pretty good. I don't see a lot of rust down in there. This is the flux that I use, regular paste flux. And then the solder is just regular wire solder. Okay, to put the valve in, I got a 7/8 socket, deep socket. Get the new valve here. And I am going to put a little bit of oil on my finger. I don't ever like to put O-rings in dry. Just a light film around it, and that'll kind of help it seal up, I think, a little bit better. You don't have to tape this. I mean, you can if you want. Now I'll run this in and get it started here. And I'm going to hold the end of the hose so that I know that it's turning good as I turn this in. I'll put my socket on there. And the reason you don't have to tape this is because it's got that O-ring in there. There we go. Don't have to go crazy on it. We should be very good there now. Put a little bit of oil around that gas O-ring. And I'm hoping that it works with this pump the way that it looks like it's kind of a newer. All right, for my level, I want to go ahead and put it in first. I'll just drop it in there, and then it just should snap up in there just like that, and kind of tug on it, make sure it's setting up in there good. You will have a connector. Let's leave that over to the side. How did that get so dirty? Can't have nothing clean. Our pump will go in just like this. This will set on this side. There's our connector, and then our fuel line outlet just snaps right up in there. So what I find easier is to go ahead and kind of get the pump going down in there. And don't seat it all the way down yet, but then go ahead and snap in. Some they hinge. This model does not. So maybe we go in backwards, then turn it, maybe. Is that what we do? Oh. Okay, now. I got you out easy. Well, goodness gracious. Good grief. Help me, Tom Cruise. Help me. I got it out like this. I don't know why I can't get it back in. Well, good grief. I don't want to tear that boot up, that's for sure. Okay. Just wasn't holding my mouth right. Alright. Let me make sure my boot's setting how I want it. Yep, okay. Alright, good grief. We will snap that in. Okay, that's what I'm afraid of. Now this is setting different. Let me grease it up a little, see if that'll work for us. It's got a snap up in there. And the other one had the O-ring on the inside, not the outside. There's an O-ring here. Do you think there was an O-ring on top and it's still in this pump? I didn't even think to check that. And that's what's keeping it from... I'll be dipped. Goodness gracious. Look at there. All right, now we know the culprit. Now we should get a good, nice, firm snap. Yeah, okay. That was it. Here's our fuel pump. Now we just got to get it lined up here in our grooves. And then that should snap down nice and good. Now we just hook our fuel pump up to that. And then this right here will go back on the housing. Got our gasket. And then we will plug this into the housing. And then we will set all of this down and on. Then we'll run our T20s in. And I like to put all of these in by hand to make sure everything is lined up where it should be. Don't want that gasket getting kinked. Make sure they have all their little seal washers on them. And then I'll take a gun and just run them down till they bottom out. And then I will tighten them by hand. I'm glad I thought to think and see if there was a O-ring up inside there. There was. Alright, I want to start down here. That's the leaky spot. I'll crisscross pattern them. Then I'll get a little ratchet on it and just kind of by feel. I'm not sure if there's a torque spec on these or not. I usually just kind of get them, you know, a little hand tight, snug on it. And, you know, not long ago I did a kind of little motorcycle shop tool essentials. Kind of showed what tools I use, and you know, they're just like Harbor Freight tools. And about 2 days later, my 1/4-inch ratchet bit the dust. Now listen, I've had that ratchet for years and years. Well, I took it into Harbor Freight. They gave me a brand new Icon, 90 teeth, for free. Can't beat that, guys. Cannot beat that. All right, that's on. So we do have weepage immediately, but it is not coming from the hole we fixed. If I put my finger there, nothing is coming out of that hole we fixed. Where it's coming out of is that little pinhole that we found once we took the paint off, right there. See it coming out right there at the tip of my finger? Pouring out of there. So we're gonna have to fix that hole. So now we fixed one hole, we gotta fix another hole. And now I'm wondering, well, do I need to strip all this off too and just fill every little pinhole I see? Yeah, that's what we're doing now. So let me get this gas out of here, pull everything back off. In hindsight, probably should have just set the tank on, poured some gas in it without putting the pump and all that on. But what else we got to do? It's not like we got bills to pay. Okay, got all the guts pulled back out again, flushed it out with water, dried it out again. Went ahead and sanded down to metal everything that I could see that had a little rust spots, and boy, I'm glad I did. 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 holes, and then our little pinhole here. That's our little pinhole that was leaking. Surprisingly, these weren't leaking. I don't know if that was just a blemish in the manufacturing. Then they puttied it, primed it, painted over it. I don't know. But we are going to fill all of these with a hole this small right here. Yes, red coating would probably take care of that. But let's fill it in with solder. That way we know it's not going to do that again. All right, so I got them all filled in. The spots that I saw, I'm just laying some just gray primer down now just so it doesn't flash rust. And I think it'll be under the tank. I don't think you'll be able to see any of it. So that should work out good. Now, I didn't know if I needed to test it before I painted it, but it's just primer. I didn't want to put gas in there and then try to flip it over and then try to paint it with gas in it. So I thought I'd just go ahead and primer it. It looked like they sealed up good. I mean, the one we did first worked great. So those up here, I don't think were leaking. Maybe they were seeping a little. So hopefully we annihilated all that. And we'll let this flash. I'll do another coat. And then we'll put all the guts back in again. Put this on the bike and see if it holds. Well, as the Bible says, the more you give, the more you receive. Or something like that. Got all those holes fixed. They didn't leak. Guess what? 2 more holes that we found. There is a hole right here, right in this corner, and there is a hole right here down around all of this. Jeez. Okay, here's my plans. This video is probably already an hour long. So I'm going to fill this in. I'm going to fill this in. I'm not going to spray it yet. I'll flip it over, I'll put gas, and this is the old valve I just threw in there so that I could flush it out with water. So I did flush it out with water, I did dry it out again. I'm going to fill this in, I'm going to fill this in, throw some gas in this side, put it up somewhere high, watch it. I'm going to fill this in a little bit better, and then I found a little nick there, though it's not leaking, I'm going to fill that in. Some tips on soldering tanks. Say, okay, like this hole here. When I go to try to fill that hole in to heat this up, it heats this whole solder up. And so you could lose it all, so you'll have to fill it all again. When I go to fill this little corner up right here, since it's close to this, I'll probably lose this as well, it'll melt. So I have to fill it up again. Another good trick, if you'll angle this up where it's level, your solder will pool and will not run down on you. Since it's so many holes in here, this side is fine. This side does have a little bit of rust on the inside, not much. And the filter looked good, but here's what I'm going to do just as a safety precaution. I'm going to red coat the inside, at least the bottoms, because everything else looks fine. So I am going to red coat this. So I have to order the red coat. I don't usually keep that in stock because I like to get a fresh can in while I've got the guts out and all that. But I do just want to accomplish fixing the holes in this tank. Then we'll line the inside with the good red coat. Then we don't have to worry about it. If the rust keeps going inside there and creates another hole that I just don't see under here, we don't have to worry about it with the red coat. This poor old tank. We're uncursing it. It was the unholy tank, but in all actuality, it was very holy. See what I did there? Okay. Now, that should be done. Let's throw some gas in it and see what we got. Alrighty. I don't know if you'll be able to see or not, but I can see. By George, I think we got her. Oh, dang. Nope, there's one still there. All that's good and dry now. So there must be another one. Yeah, there's another one. Where are you? Where are you? Oh gosh, don't go off on me now, tank. Okay, let's see, my crossover's leaking, but I don't have a clamp on that. There's another hole back here. Yep, right back here. Not where we just soldered, but back here. All this is dry though, that's good. All that held good. And of course we'll red coat the inside. What they say, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And then try again. And then try again. And try again, try again. Boy, I found it that time. The more metal you take off, the kind of more it reveals. I think we're up to 12 holes now. This should be our last one. Then since we are going to red coat this, we'll get this sealed up and we will call this a day or a week in the shop. And then next time we'll red coat it, we'll throw it on. I mean, we could go ahead and put some gas in it, but then I'd have to take everything back off again. You know, beautiful. And then I'm probably not going to touch that. Might as well just solder the whole new tank by this point, you know. You say, well, why don't you just use water, dude? Because then you got to pour your gas back out. Well, I'm just putting a little bit in. And to me, now this might not be scientifically true, but you tell me. Gas is thinner, right? Because when you put mixed water in the gas, the water sets on top of the gas. Am I right or am I wrong? So gas is heavier, or is it the other way around? I don't know. I've just always heard gas is thinner, and if you're looking for leaks in a tank, you want to use gas. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me, because it would have made my job a whole lot easier. And what are you? Now every little chip under this tank I'm worrying about. Okay, I think you're okay. Oh, guys, gals, folks, gather around. We have sealed it up. We did it. We did it. No more leaks. It is dry. It is dry. Now I'm going to let this set for a minute because I want to see if there's any seepage. But I don't guess it really matters because we're going to red coat it anyway. But there is nothing. It's dry as a bone. Let me look down here and make sure my fuel is. Oh yeah, it's over there. Okay, that fixed it. 12 holes later, we have an unholy tank. I can feel the cold of the tank. We fixed all the leaks on this tank. Whew. What a job. Somebody did put some kind of sealant in these. Before. I'm finding that down, and there's a big coating of it, and all of the flushing I've been doing on this tank has been peeling it off. But the sides and stuff look good. It's just like it's had some gas setting in there since 2006. But I'm happy. No more leaks. Dry, dry, dry. Beautiful. Well, when they said it was a cursed bike, little did I know how cursed it was. But it was holy, now it's unholy, but it's still cursed. I don't know. I don't know what we did. But we're making progress. We're not just spinning our wheels. I think this battery is going to hang in there for us. I checked the voltage today and it was 12.98. Hadn't been on the charger all day, so that's good. Now, we could throw that tank on, throw everything guts in it, fire it up. But really, guys, we got to just take all that out again to red coat it. Why do all that? But I think we got the tank holes fixed. 12 holes in total. Is that like a country song or something? I don't know. Thank you so much for helping me out this week with this uncursing this bike. We're getting there. We are getting there. Oh, the code. Did I tell you about the code? I went back and watched the footage. It's a rear oxygen sensor open. So A lot of times, aftermarket pipes, if the bong's not right, when they weld it in, it can cause that issue. This cord, the wiring is really super short, but I did check the connector. These pins can get bent, they can get kind of goop on them. I will check that out. It was a history code, so it wasn't throwing a current code, but that would explain that rear plug being a little bit dirtier than the front. I did pick up some new plugs. Well, of course, I went with Champion copper filter, all the fluids that we're going to do for it. Oh, and I got to order, when I order the red coat, I got to order the speedometer, tripometer button. We got to get that fixed. So we'll be doing all that. So lots to go. We haven't even, I don't even know if it shifts. We don't, I mean, it's only got 3,000 miles. Should be a brand new bike. But want to get it on the road and get it riding and do the brakes, all that fun stuff. So there's a lot more to come next week, you and I getting this back on the road. Thank you so much for helping me out in the shop. And tell your mom and them I said hi.